Hey, flower friends, welcome back to the Field and Garden Podcast. It is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I'm so glad you have dropped in here. I am snuggled down inside my house. We have snow on the ground, not much, and it's melting, which is kind of classic for southeastern Virginia. They forecast that we're going to have a big snowstorm. It at the last minute takes a left turn, kind of grazes us, causes a lot of anxiety for flower farmers. I'm sure gardeners everywhere. And then we get a little snow and it melts quickly. I mean, we didn't even have it for 12 hours. So friends, welcome to gardening and farming, right? You just have to kind of roll with the punches. And it's easier to do that, my friends, when you don't go it alone. So before we jump into today's episode, which I've kind of named the Superpower for beginner flower farmers, and that is not going it alone. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. So friends, as if this is the first time you've dropped in on us, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. You can learn more about the Gardener's Workshop, who brings you this podcast, over at thegardenersworkshop.com. That is home base to everything that we do. Tons of resources. You can connect with our other podcast, Seed Talk. We have a fully stocked online garden shop that offers the same tools, seeds, and supplies, and my books, all the stuff that I use, and my resources. And you can find that over at thegardenersworkshop.com, as well as you can connect with our online courses, my Flower Farmer Club, which is my private membership just for you, as well as you can also connect with my live gardening show that happens 2 to 3 times a week and more over at thegardenersworkshop.com. So friends, that is what I'm calling this. It is a superpower that most beginner flower farmers actually pass on. I'm going to try not to go down rabbit holes, y'all. But I do believe that the pass on this is the leading cause of so many failed attempts at becoming a flower farmer or starting a flower farming business. I believe it's because flower farming is so easy to just kind of start in your backyard without any previous experience or knowledge of what to do and how to do it and when to do it and all that kind of stuff. And it's driven by, of course, we have an overabundance of resources, some good and many not good or reliable. And so it's really easy to peck your way along. But that, unfortunately, we see it. I mean, we talk to these people. Those folks that have chosen that highway have a very slim chance of success. And history proves that. So, back to my notes. So this is going to be kind of a different start to one of my podcasts, but I really do believe that one of the reasons that I had and have such a large dose of grit, the keep after it, keep doing it, regardless of how many times it kicks you, this large dose of grit that has kept me in flower farming for almost 30 years now, is I grew up, y'all, with a big brother that picked on me a lot of the time or picked at me a lot of the time. And I learned from a very early age to get up and try again and again and again. He was the kind of brother that would, pinch you when you walked past him sometimes. And he would take my favorite stuff and hide it from me. Basically just an annoyance, right? That led me to become a strategist at age 8. I was already plotting and planning. And that was the start of my strong stick-with-it character for things that I really, really wanted, right? And I realized that that's not everybody's reaction to an annoying brother. But it sure worked out pretty good for me. And it made our mom a little crazy with our bantering at times, this daily practicing, however, of overcoming all these little problems that my annoying brother presented during my childhood really prepared me for this good life ahead. I mean, you might look at it and say it kind of toughened me up, right? And I mean, there was nothing sinister about any of it. It was just good old big brother picking on little sister, right? So, and as a side note to that, my big brother Vance and I are fast, thick friends now. We see each other at a minimum weekly, but I'm happy to report he has not taken any of my stuff lately or pinched me in decades. However, I still do, it's so funny, instinctively at times flinch when we walk close to one another. You know, it's like pulling your shoulder towards you so he can't pinch your upper arm. That's where he would always pinch me, like where you get a shot in the top of your arm. Anyway, I attribute that was really part of my practicing. And, you know, I could go down a big old hole on that one too, y'all. You know, practicing is what it's all about. Nobody can complain about having trouble starting seeds until you've tried 20,000 times, right? Okay, that's all I'm going to say. When I began flower farming back in 1998 with a dream and literally, y'all, one resource, and that one resource was Lynn Bazinski's book, The Flower Farmer, that I had discovered through a magazine article. That was it. All that was available. Nothing else. I read that book in and out practically weekly. You know, back then, 1998, y'all, most homes didn't even have a home computer yet. The internet was out there, but it was very select. I mean, it was a gift, actually. We know now not having so much in front of you really helps you to focus. But it was me in that book. And so I went it alone. You know, that was kind of the name of our podcast here is Don't Go It Alone. I went it alone. I had to go it alone. I had to start my flower farming business because I didn't have any options any other way. But I do not recommend it. It was brutal at times, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, and it cost me, I speculate, 10 to 15 times what it should have had because of wasted money and mistakes. And that's why I don't recommend any of those reasons. Now, y'all know my husband, Stevie. You know, he has been my biggest supporter and encourager, but he knew even less about cut flower growing business than I did. So even though he was my cheerleader, he still didn't have the answers, right? He was merely the vegetable gardener that brought all the necessary tools to this venture. And certainly I attribute much of my success to him and his morning pep talks and offering advice and just listening to me lament about the current crisis. But that is just a small portion of what you need to actually be able to succeed, right? Because, you know, if you haven't discovered this yet, flower farming, growing flowers as a crop to sell is like farming any other crop to sell. Like, think of people that grow soybeans or corn or tomatoes. It has nothing to do with gardening, y'all. It is 100% different than I ever expected. It's good. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm saying it is nothing like what you expect. And because it is so different, farming from gardening, that's why most people that slide in through the back door from a gardener trying to start in their backyard alone never make it out of their backyard, right? So it isn't as most of us think or dream it is, right? The dream part of the cut flower business is why there is such an enormous influx of wannabe cut flower growers, you know. We see only the flower fields, which, by the way, is practically non-existent. That is just not the way it goes, which, you know, we cut many of the flowers before they ever bloom, so forth and so on. So what flower farming is not, it's not just growing a bigger garden and then finding somebody to sell it to. That's what jump starts most people. Certainly growing more flowers and selling them are on the main menu, but it's the day-to-day stuff that makes and keeps a business going. Those are the unseen, unknown little surprises along the way, y'all. And I like to call them the little and the big fires. They pop up every single day, and they're going to do that for the rest of your business life, y'all. And those little fires and big fires that pop up every day, that's what burns most potential cut flower growers to the ground. That's what takes them out before they even really get a fair chance. And I'm just going to keep saying it. Going it alone is what leads to this most often. Because the fires wear you down, particularly when you don't have backup, like legit resources. I want to stop and say this for a minute. So if you are new here and haven't heard me talk about this, my husband was in a family business. He was literally in the business for 50 years. His dad started a plumbing business back in 1969. He and his brother, his dad, were like doing it for a long time, and then his sister came on board, and then the company grew. And so I'm telling you that every morning at the breakfast table, he would lament. This happened before my big flower farming days. He would lament on everything from the horrible jobs they were doing, the guys, the truck problems, the equipment problems. And we started looking at those things as those are fires. And when you're a business owner and you're the leader, you are the fire extinguisher. And when you realize before you even go to work that that's what you're going to be doing all day, it helps so much. And so it's those fires that happen every single day of a business. If they're not happening, then your business is probably not doing very well. They are what burn you down. And as I was getting ready to say, especially when you don't have legit resources to lean on, because here is an even, I don't want to call it a dark backside, but a bigger backstory than going it alone. Worse than going it alone leads many to this abrupt ending even before they get started, and it's leaning on others that have no more experience in successful business or flower farming than you may have. I considered myself a beginner up until 5 years and sometimes even 10 years. Up until that point, you are a sponge. You're still a sponge, even if you're past 10 years. But you have digested enough at this point in time that you can actually help and lift other people. We have a lot of people that fall well under that are offering information and guidance. So I see eager beginners being misled, not from a point of malice by any means, but from others just giving guidance based on, well, I'm not really sure what their opinions are based on. And there's just no shortage of advice from those that think they know, not from doing it, but from what they think. I mean, this is in everything we do, right? I mean, these are common day events. And so I want to give you a good example. Have you ever tried to follow the written instructions on some item you've bought, whether it's a toy or whatever, that you're trying to put together, reading those instructions, and it becomes really clear that whoever wrote the instructions obviously had never put that item together following those instructions? Do you see what I mean? It's like so often it seems so obvious to those that have not walked in the shoes yet. And this is true in everything in life, and it's really true in our flower farming business. That's what this industry has a lot of these days. And the sad part to me is that there is already so many uphill battles to fight and fires to put out when you decide to go into business. When everything goes right, there's still a ton of problems to solve. To think of people, and I see it because I talk to them, that push a boulder up a mountain to only learn when they arrive it's the wrong mountain, and you didn't even need that boulder. That's what we see. People doing a lot of stuff, wasting money, and time and gut juice on things that just really aren't even necessary, right? So I'm going to say that again, is that going into business, there's really a lot of uphill battles, even when you have all the right pieces and you have all the right parts, and you're still going to face flash fires and problems and heartburn and all of those things. But the saddest part to me is all those eager wannabe business owners that get not the right information, and they push a boulder up a mountain based on being guided, to only learn that when they arrive at the top, they're on the wrong mountain and they didn't even need that boulder that they drug up that mountain. You know? It's pretty profound, actually. And you can apply that to all areas of life, right? So why do so many of us fall into that crowd of those, people sitting in an office writing instructions for products they've never even really touched, right? That they've never put together themselves. It just seems like it would be right on paper. And I want to tell you why. Because that is the most comfortable place to be. And I so understand this. Great little side story here. Now that my business is in so many other business areas, right? Retailing and e-commerce and all that stuff. There are so many of these just really great big mastermind groups, small groups of business people that you have to apply to get in. I mean, they're very costly. I've never done one. I mean, they're $25,000 to go. And then you're like mentored for like 6 weeks after it. I mean, you have to bare your soul. You have to do so much work. It is so hard. Well, I mean, it is hard to put yourself out there. It's easier to just fall in your own little world and keep on doing what you're doing instead of stepping out and doing new things and investing your money. And I'm just saying, I understand why people don't go where their businesses could change or they could learn a lot more, because it's hard work, right? It can be scary, and it's just more work, because when you kind of hook yourself with those people, you kind of get down to business, right? And planning and starting and building and maybe even expanding their business, whether it's a mentor or a small group or a community, it means that you will be stretched. It's basically kind of like exercising, y'all. We all need it, but few of us choose to do it, right? Going it alone or pushing that boulder you don't need up a mountain that you shouldn't even be on is why there is a huge failure rate amongst newbie flower farmers. Most quit after a couple of failures. For me, I can remember many failures, but the first of many financial disasters that I created out of ignorance, of not really knowing what I was doing and no one to ask back then or to lean on. I should have quit right then. But I had all that practice, compliments of my big brother as a kid about just going after what I wanted. And there's other things that play into that. But most people would have just quit there, because we talk to those people too. The folks that are like, I've thrown in the towel. My husband, my family just couldn't support me any longer in this endeavor. It was just such a disaster. But having a great cheerleader, Stevie, really had a huge impact on it again for me to get up and try again and again and again. And because it is so easy to just start in your backyard, many wannabe and new flower farmers just tend to go it alone, thinking that you can figure it out along the way. And, I'm speaking from firsthand experience, because I am that personality that just keeps going and going. I know that I'm fortunate to have that, but not everybody is. And choosing to not go it alone really can be the make or break for you, because going it alone leads to a very high rate of burnout, missed opportunities, and just plain quitting, y'all. I know because I did it that way. And honestly, I think that for me, what kept me going a little bit was my pride. The fear of admitting failure seemed like it was going to be harder than me trying to figure out how to succeed, you know? My dad used to always say, if it was easy, honey, everybody would be doing it. And that is just so truthful. But I would like to add to that, if this was easy, everyone would be successful. But it's not easy. And I want to just focus for a few minutes on the hidden benefits of, that secret superpower that beginner flower farmers can unlock by seeking out solid resources, thriving communities, and even small group mentorships. And the powerful advantages that come from surrounding yourself with those like-minded individuals who are like on a similar journey, with those leading that are well ahead of you, that you want to do what they are doing and have done. And friends, that's the gauge that you judge stuff by right there. I'm going to say it again. For those, you want to be in a group of people, of like-minded people that are on the same journey as you, that they're being led by those that are well ahead of where you want to go, that you want to do what they are doing and what they have done. That is the best gauge ever. And there's some really surprising benefits from joining with other people, especially because I had to learn to do it, y'all. I mean, here I was, this loner, early flower farmer in the middle of the city, no other farmers. I was so isolated. So I really had to force myself into these kinds of situations to learn that, holy cow, there are so much available, so many benefits you just can't even imagine, right? Tapping into other people's knowledge and expertise, that just fast tracks you. And the learning curve by learning from others' successes and failures. It is such a treasure. Nothing makes my heart swoon more than either in the club or in flower farming school. Before I can get to somebody's question that they've asked in the group, to have another more experienced student or member chime in and say, well, I don't know everything, but I tried this and that didn't work either. Or I tried that, people helping other people. And I just can't tell you how beneficial and confidence building having the access to knowledgeable and other people's expertise. And again, I want to just being in groups that have a leader makes all the difference than just random groups of people that are, I'm not saying you shouldn't be in those groups. I'm just saying that's not the place to spend your valuable time during your learning time, because there's nobody for check and balance, right? The problem solving that happens in collaboration, I just did not understand the power of collective brainstorming. Sometimes I'll go in to, whether it's a membership or flower farming school, and again, somebody's asked a question, and it is just so helpful to read what other people have chimed in. That's called collaboration, y'all. Problem solving. It just helps us instantly to overcome our fear. First off, you see that other people have faced the same, can of worms that you're facing, right? And sometimes you find really unique solutions to problems that you would have never dreamed of as a beginner. So that was just so surprising to me. And here's one that, my husband played a really big role in this for me. And then having others that were facing flower farming issues was really helpful. And that is the emotional support and even encouragement. Learning how to be a part of a supportive community provides not only motivation and inspiration and reassurance, but it just gives you perseverance to push through putting out all those fires, y'all, the ups and downs. And I used to think that flower farming was the hardest business in the world. Here we are sweating all day, growing flowers and having to do all the other mess of business. Well, guess what? I was married to a very busy, successful plumber business owner. And I have to say, they work just as hard and face as many, if not more, bigger problems. Do you know what I mean? It's so easy when you're isolated to just think the world is falling in, the sky is falling. And, having support and encouragement from other people can make or break you by not going it alone, y'all. And unlocking new opportunities. I love seeing when somebody chimes in on some outlet to sell their flowers that's not talked about very much, saying, hey, I just went and did this, and guess what? They said yes, or they're interested, or they bought, or whatever. That boosts everybody in the crowd, right? And it's really helpful to explore all these connections and the networking within just a great little flower farming community starts to develop. I love it when people start sharing about different sales channels and other ideas and opportunities. Farm stands, there's just so much stuff that when people bring their original ideas and share it, it boosts the person that's sharing, and it boosts the people that are partaking in that. Friends, I hope what you're gonna take away from this, if you're one of these beginner flower farmers, that you're gonna walk away with a deeper appreciation and understanding of the power of community, solid resources, and some steps you can take to start building your own support network. You do not need to, you should not, and I would be willing to say, I guess I've said I went it alone. I didn't really go it alone, right? I had Steve, who was an entrepreneur, highly successful business person, and he gave me a pep talk every morning. So maybe I didn't go it alone, but I just want you to know that there are opportunities right outside your door waiting for you. You just have to use good judgment to choose the ones that you're going to embark on. My experience of having to go it alone in the flower farming world and all the challenges is what led me and drives me to be a teacher. I used to tell the story back when I was doing so much public speaking, especially when I first started, to say that, it all started because in the off season, when I was flower farming, I wasn't doing a lot of cool flowers yet. During the winter, I was looking for something to do, and I started speaking to local garden clubs and master gardeners, because it didn't take those groups long to notice what I was bringing to the farmers market every week. So they would ask me, and I'd say, hey, sure, November, December, and January, I can do that. Well, when I started doing that, I discovered that my greatest gift potentially is empowering other people to do this, and particularly those people that were just like me that thought they could never do it. I was barely a gardener, y'all. I live in the city. I had never even been on a farm. You know what I mean? It's like I was the most unlikely suspect. And as I began teaching, it just became really evident to me that that was my strongest gift. And, my experiences and challenges just led me to where I am. And that's why I began creating courses like Flower Farming School and Flower Farming Club. So Flower Farming School really offered a comprehensive footprint to follow, to start a business, what to grow, how to build your garden, who to sell it to, harvesting and conditioning, just like how the structure, the basic foundation of a flower farm business. But then it kind of, even though we have a private group that goes with it, people felt really like they wanted more. And that led me to start a couple years ago, the Flower Farming Club. And that's like a continuing education, or we refer to it sometimes as lifelong learning. And my vision for the membership was to give access to ongoing support, like a network. And it's a community of like-minded people where I continue to create resources. There's master classes and podcasts. And so there's new things going on. But there's this, it's just like a Facebook group, y'all, except it's private and I'm riding shotgun on it, right? It allows people that want to start and do a business and grow a business to not have to go it alone after they've gone through flower farming school, right? The gates or the doors, I guess you would say, to the membership opens a couple times a year. The link will be down below this in the show notes. But if the gates aren't open now, if the door isn't open to join the membership, you can get on the wait list for the next time that it opens. And I just want you to know you don't have to go it alone. And that's just one great way to actually have that support that you need. Knowing why something goes right or wrong is just so very, very helpful, y'all. I know once that I had the choice to not have to go it alone, to seek out those doing what I aspired to do and to consume all that they offered, that my business changed and grew me into what I am doing today. And that is my hope of me offering these resources. I just hope that you will partake and not go it alone. And we love providing resources and opportunities for you along your journey. And remember, friends, drop in over at thegardenersworkshop.com where you can find all of this. Courses, club membership, free resources, blogs, connect with our other podcast, and connect with the Live Gardening Show. So friends, everything we do for you. And I mean that. Till we meet again, my friends. Ciao.